Do-It-Yourselfers. I'm here today in beautiful Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's a couple days after Thanksgiving, November 2017. So today I'm working on a little project trying to repair some rotted and dried out wood that's a beam that's on an overhang. And I'm going to use some Elmer's ProBond professional strength wood filler, interior, exterior. I'm not worried about the stainable aspect of it since I'm going to be painting it. So let's see what we can do here. The only trick to this one is I'm up on top of the roof. There's the beam in question. So that's the problem. I want to repair some of that. It's been caulked a bunch of times and it's such a big gap on the top that it won't hold paint or anything. So I'm going to be scraping the old paint and caulk off of it and repairing it with some of that Elmer's ProBond wood filler. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's start by doing a little scraping of the old products that have been on there. Get those off. I'm only using a couple tools today. I'm using a putty knife and a scraper. So let's see what we can do. Here's some of that old caulk. It's just not holding anymore. It gets so hot on this west side of the house that stuff just burns right off. Well, if you're wondering why I'm up on the roof on my belly instead of on a ladder, here's the reason. I've got windows and about a 3-foot peak overhang on the gable there, and then the beam goes about another foot, so I could get a ladder up there, but it's probably just as easy to go from the roof. Well, I have it scraped about as good as I'm going to get it with my scraper. I got all the loose paint off, and as you can see, it's fairly dried out and rotten. So my goal is not to make this completely beautiful, it's to prevent any more sun and water damage, even though we don't get a lot of rain here. But the sun is so hot here, I've got to get something on there to protect the wood a little bit and keep from drying out anymore. So let's see what we can do with this product and see if we can't get this thing a little more weatherproofed. Okay, let's see if we can make some headway with our ProBond wood filler. It comes ready mixed. It's a little bit loose, so you got to be kind of careful so it doesn't all run off on you. It's better already. It dries fairly quickly too, so you can't fool around with it for too long. Some of the deeper repairs might need another coat. If you've got any experience sheetrock taping, you'll be able to work this like magic. See, it's already starting to dry there. You really can't go over it again. Especially when it's in the sun like this. I'm going to leave well enough alone right there. It's been about 2 hours since I put it on, my first coat, and I'm going to scrape off some of the high spots before it gets completely hard. It's a lot easier than sanding them off later, so I'm just going to take my putty knife and scrape off some of the ridges. It's not quite fully hardened yet, so a lot easier to do it now than sand all that off. Square up this corner a little. This stuff does sand pretty well too, but not as easy as scraping it. You gotta be a little careful so you don't take off more than you want. Now I'll come back later and sand it and put another coat on to smooth out the imperfections, kind of like you would sheetrock mud. Well, I'm back up on the roof looking at my beam that I filled yesterday. It's been about 20 hours or so since I last was up here. Looks like it's fairly dry. Some of the deeper spots on the top may not be 100% hard, but good enough to sand. So that's what I'm going to start with. I'm going to sand, and I'm going to put another coat on to smooth it out a little more. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to start sanding. I have a sanding block with some 100 grit sandpaper, which is good enough to take off the rough stuff. I have to say, this stuff does sand pretty nicely. Okay, I've got it sanded. I'm going to put another coat on just to smooth out some of the imperfections. I have to say, this stuff works pretty well. Doesn't really shrink that much either on the deeper fills. And it would be much easier if I weren't up on the top of the roof. That's why this is a real world test. So we'll let that dry again for a couple hours and come back and scrape it down a little. So I'm back on my beam project here. I'm going to do the sanding, my final sanding and painting today. So let's see how it looks after I do the final sanding. Well, I've got it sanded about as good as I want to get it. Now let's see how it takes some primer. Looks pretty good. Seems to take the primer well. Pretty nice. I might give it another coat just for good measure. I would say it's quite paintable. Well, for a recap on my beam repair project using Elmer's ProBond wood filler, I'd have to say that the product works very well. It goes on nicely, it dries fairly quickly without shrinking, it sands easily, it takes paint well. I can't say anything about the staining of it because I didn't stain it, but overall I give it an A rating. I got 2 beam repairs out of one 32-ounce tub of this. So thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and good luck with your repair.